You got into Kellogg, you got into Wharton, and now you're in Stanford.
Yep.
What eventually matters in a profile and what makes a profile stand out? And what do you think was that aha thing in your profile that got picked by so many colleges?
I got a 760 on my GMAT. There are friends of mine who have a 770. I know they've been declined from HSW all three. There are friends of mine who have a 720. They've been accepted to these schools. And these are all people from India. So at your undergrad scores have a 0.26 correlation with how your academic performance in the postgraduate program is. And GMAT had a 0.51 correlation.
Okay.
So that is all that this exam is supposed to measure. Don't fit your life to an MBA. The MBA has to add value to your life. Employment coming from those places, there is no H1B. So even if the school has a 15% placement in consulting, but the number of internationals hired is 5 and 40 of you are walking in, then that is not for you.
The three elements, right, which is the studying, the sleeping and the socializing, the 3 S's of an MBA. People say you pick 2. I don't know if I'm supposed to share this or not.
Why is no one talking about the specific challenges Indian students face in Ivy League MBA admissions? Namaste and welcome to another episode of the Witty Podcast. Today we have with us my college senior, Mr. Akul Jindal, who not only got into Wharton and Kellogg, but is currently pursuing his MBA from Stanford. So if you're dreaming of an Ivy League MBA but don't know where to start, this episode is the perfect starting point for you. My goal with this episode is to make it your go-to crash course / Bible when it comes to admissions. So Akul, you are my college senior. We both went to CBS. And then you got into Kellogg, you got into Wharton, and now you're in Stanford.
Yep.
How did this happen?
I think the initial idea of doing an MBA, it gets seeded very early on for anyone who's from India because your education is not considered complete till you've done an MBA, especially if you're going into commerce or economics as your field of study. So I think the idea of doing an MBA emerged there, which is this is something that you have to do. The other broader, I would say, environment also dictated this because people who were successful or supposedly successful in India at the time were all people who had done MBAs from developed economies. You could see people from the US, from Europe. And if my memory serves me right, the first MD of McKinsey in India had done his MBA from Wharton, right? IIT Bombay grad. And similarly, all Asia heads, all India heads of all of these organizations were from some of the best Ivy League colleges. So that is what the grounding was. And therefore, I ended up applying to these programs back then. Kellogg, Wharton specifically because family had a background in capital markets. And within that, of course, there was a subset in marketing. So that was the idea. But as I went on my personal journey, spent some time exploring entrepreneurship and venture capital, that is when Stanford happened because naturally now my fit of what the most suitable school for me looked like changed over time as I discovered my own journey, my goals, my ambitions.
I'll take a step back. So mostly people in college have no idea about what they want to do post-college, right? A, how did you get that kind of clarity? And B, once someone gets to a certain level, right, you get a deferred admit from let's say a Kellogg or a Wharton. You kind of stop there, you chill, you just, because you know something nice has happened. What kept that desire and that ambition fueled in you that no, I can get something even better than this?
I think to the first supposition there, which is people don't know what to do after college. I think people don't even know what to do before college, what type of college to pick, right? And it's not me, adopting a holier than thou attitude and saying that I knew it. I didn't know it either. I had a semblance of wanting to be in capital markets, which is why Shahid Sukhdev, which is by BBA in financial investment analysis. But for a large majority of the people, the idea is to always look at what is the best college that is accessible to me. It does not even extend to the idea of, okay, within that college, what is it that I'm studying? What are the resources that are available? What is it that my goals are? And I think I met this friend of mine who recently said this line, which is, ambition is the insecure person's answer for lack of passion. So to me, that idea also comes from a place of not knowing what you want to do, and therefore you relentlessly pursue things that are considered good,
Yeah.
which is what ambition, right? So there are a lot of people along with me who were part of the Kellogg Deferred program or Wharton Deferred program. Some of them went on to Wharton, some of them went on to Kellogg. A few of them also did not. They applied again. Some of them are now going to Harvard. A few of them are with me at Stanford. And so I think it is, for some of them, it came from a place of saying that, okay, my goal of what I wanted to achieve has changed. I have more clarity in life, and therefore I want to do this. Yes, it also works within the idea of saying that Stanford or Harvard are very difficult schools to get into, and so there's a certain brand prestige associated with it. The alums have done well. But it came from a different place. It came from a place of saying that I have a specific goal. I see my sense of purpose clearer, and therefore this school fits better in that journey compared with the other school that I was initially supposed to go to. So I would say that it was not, at least as far as I'm concerned, it was not about passion. I think it had more to do with my journey in itself telling me that, you know what, with the goal that you have of continuing in investing, of being a part of the startup ecosystem, Stanford just is a much better or much more suitable option for me compared with the other schools that I was supposed to matriculate into.
So when you say a certain college is a better fit for you or aligns better with your goals now, how did you learn about that? So for someone who's watching right now, how can they also figure out that, oh, I should apply to this school, not because it's cool, it will look really nice on my LinkedIn, but because it actually aligns with what I might eventually want to do?
I think the first question to answer there is, what is it that you want to be doing? The moment you uncover that, everything else, in my view, aligns. So there are friends of mine who decided that they wanted to work in the education field. There are people who decided they wanted to work in climate. Now, when you want to work in those fields, which is when you've understood what your passion is, what your long-term goal is, then you start tracing back from there, which is, what do I need between now and then to materialize this goal? And you start tracing what are the steps that people in similar places as you have taken to get there. And what they may have done, by the way, 20 years ago may not apply today, but it gives you a directional sense. So I think this is where you start. What is the type of impact you want to have? In what space? Who are the people who are doing that today? What is it that they have done, right? And whatever it is that they have done, what were the resources that enabled them in their journey? Is there a different way to access the same resources today? And then you start thinking about fit. So for anyone who's thinking about what college to go to, the default answer is always, of course, the simpler choice to make is to go with the brand prestige. Because if you assimilate enough ambitious people in a tight-knit community, there will be outcomes.
Yeah.
But if you identify what is it that you want to accomplish, then your journey will be a lot richer compared to anyone else's. 30% of the class roughly at Stanford does not sit for placements. They pursue their entrepreneurial ventures, right? And that is a significant number. So anyone who wants to be a founder, for them, it is very easy to understand that this is a place where the ecosystem is much richer for someone who aspires to be a founder compared with any other school. So those are the markers to look for. So I think it starts much before deciding which college I want to go to. It starts by you deciding what is it that you want to be doing. So if it is in climate, then you look at what are the resources available, what is it that I need to get where I have to be, and then what schools are offering these. Over time, schools will also start to look more or less similar because the programming, the modules, it's very hard to be able to differentiate, but some of the markers will stand out. For instance, Kellogg has a very unique culture of forming these learning teams where a lot of projects are done in groups, right? So that becomes your default or go-to community. Stanford has this culture of talk, which is where people express their stories, their ideas in a very vulnerable, open format setting,
they
right?
also have a class on emotional...
Yeah, it's called Touchy-Feely.
Touchy-Feely, yeah. It's a very famous class.
Yeah, so actually, which is the fun fact, Wharton has a similar class to Touchy-Feely, right? But it's structured differently. The time is different. The amount of hours that you spend, the way the peer group is constructed is very different at Wharton than at Stanford, which is why the idea of having a very granular view into how that programming is done. Capital markets can be taught as a subject across all 7 schools. But what is the way they're teaching capital markets? Who are the people who are teaching capital markets? Is it practitioners? Is it academics? Where is it that you're spending your time? So things like that is what people have to spend time really understanding.
I have so many questions there, but I'll have to start from the very starting. So let's say I figure out कि okay, these 5 schools align with what I want to do, and I know this is what I would want to do like 10 years down the line. How do I start preparing now? I think step 1 would be GMAT or GRE. Then applications, everything. So how did you prepare for GMAT?
Yeah. No, so on GMAT, I think the format has changed recently. So my journey may not be the best suited for anyone today to follow when they're thinking about taking the GMAT. But I started thinking about taking the GMAT in my first year in undergrad. And the reason behind that was I saw a lot of people who were taking the CAT exam. And CAT to me did not seem like the best approach to assess someone's aptitude. And it has more to do not with the questions that they're asking, the content. I think that is a very different story. But more to say that this is something that has to happen at a point in time on a specified date, right? So my entire year's sort of worth is going to be assessed on that one. And people will say the same thing about exams and so on.
Yeah.
I think given the importance of the outcome of that exam, CAT was not something I considered suitable for myself. Hence GMAT, hence first year. A lot of people might take that decision much later in their journey. For me, because I decided in my first year, I started taking coaching. You have your summer empties. So basically I was taking coaching over the weekends and then doing a lot of practice myself. And I think with GMAT, the idea is that you have to be consistent, that you have to be disciplined. So it's not about solving the most number of questions. It is solving fewer questions, but optimizing for accuracy.
Yeah.
Identifying what is it that's working for you, what is it that's not working for you, and then working on those areas more. So GMAT, I think, as a journey is different. In terms of time commitment, there are people who have taken the GMAT in, I think, a month's time. There are people who have taken the GMAT in 6 months' time. And then there are people like me who took coaching and then took the actual exam about a year later.
Okay.
Right?
So in your second year?
In my second year. I took the exam actually at the end of my second year when the third year was starting. So all of those people will have their approaches to what worked. And for me, I think practicing, even though I had taken the coaching much earlier, practicing right before the exam, spending those 2 months during again my summer internship was what helped. So if you're consistent, if you're disciplined, I think GMAT works out.
But do you think, since it's a slightly expensive exam, right? So how can people go about that? Also, is there a way to get scholarships or some sort of help from some financial aid from someone else to help fund your GMAT? A lot of people have asked me this.
No, I get that, and that's a very fair. I think it's $250, $300,
It's
which
around
is
22,000 rupees.
Yeah, it's not cheap at all. And I think I was fortunate that I only had to take it once.
Oh,
There are people who have had to take it multiple times, friends of mine, and so it's always painful as a process, right? Because you're shelling out 25,000 rupees every time you're taking the exam, and maybe you're taking coaching once or multiple times over in that journey. So I don't know if there's anyone who gives scholarship for taking the exam, but I do know that there are some educational institutes that are open to the idea of sponsoring your coaching. So they will be more than happy to waive off your entire fee. And that is not necessarily outcome based, but it is also based on your background. So if you're not from a very well-off financial background, these institutes are more than happy to make that accommodation for you, because they also understand that it's an expensive exam from Indian standards. I think the CAT is like 1,000 rupees probably.
Yeah.
So it's a huge difference.
25 times more expensive. But how much did you score on your GMAT? And why do you think pehle attempt mein you were able to kill it?
So I got a 760 on my GMAT. So for me, I think what worked out was, so sectionally, the funny thing is that for Indians, quant is the one, if you look at most people's scores who have gotten a 760, 770, their quant will
is the high
likely be 51, which is the most I think, at least I know that people achieve. So quant 51 or quant 50. My quant was actually 49. So quant 49 automatically puts you on quant scorers globally, you're in the 74th percentile. So you're clearly not doing well.
Yeah.
What worked out well for me was my verbal comprehension. So that is the part where I was at, I think verbal was 44, which is at 97, 98 percentile. So combined both of those then gave me that score. I think for me what worked out was spending a lot of time reading, which goes beyond just studying for the exam. If you read a lot, if you write a lot, some of these things will become very intuitive to you, which is not sentence correction per se, but for me, I found out that critical reasoning was not as tough. Reading comprehensions were not as tough because they were mostly based on logic and a flow of thought. So if you read a lot outside the scope of the exam, I think that also feeds into it. There is no specific score that is great for a specific college. And I know that that's a very idealistic way of looking at things. In India, because everyone sees test taking is something that is entirely under their control, there's a lot of pressure that is put on achieving high scores on the exam, right? But again, if you go back to the framework, when colleges are evaluating you, they're looking at a host of things, right?
Yeah.
Most important of which is, this person wants to achieve a specific goal. Is this the right place to be able to help them achieve that goal? And do I have the same resources offered in the most suitable way? So a college is not necessarily saying, oh wow, this person has scored a 790 on the GMAT, I must take them. There are friends of mine who have a 770. I know they've been declined from HSW all three. There are friends of mine who have a 720. They've been accepted to these schools. And these are all people from India. So I'm not talking about anyone outside the country. So it all goes back to the broader idea of what is it that you want to achieve. And your test score is only a factor in that profile to say that academically you will not do poorly in that school, right? Like you will be able to survive in that environment. I think at least the time when I took the GMAT, the idea was that your undergrad scores have a 0.26 correlation with how your academic performance in the postgraduate program is, and GMAT had a 0.51 correlation.
Okay.
So that is all that this exam is supposed to measure. Don't over-index on it, but yes, also don't lax, right? Like take it seriously, attempt it, like you should be able to put your best foot forward in terms of saying that this is where I'm at. But also, if you have a 740, I would not say that you should spend the next 3 months again preparing for the GMAT and then saying, oh no, I need a 750 or a 760. That is not helpful. The GMAT, at least when I took it, also used to give you a corridor that this is this person's actual performance on the day of the exam, but they could have scored plus minus 30 if they had taken the same exam on a different day. So they're cognizant of that idea.
All right. So after I'm done with my GMAT, now that's what I was asking earlier. How do I plan my applications? Do I hire a consultant? Is it worth the amount that they charge? A. B. If I don't have that kind of money, how do I still sort of try to make the most out of my situation and apply, right? Do I network with people? Do I leverage LinkedIn? What do I do?
Got it. So I think if you have the financial access to, hiring a guide or a coach through the process definitely helps. There is no two ways about it. I think...
how does it help?
So it will give you a process, it will give you a structure. Now imagine that you are working 9 to say 7, 8, 9 p.m. day in, day out. And alongside that you want to be applying to business schools and you want to put your best foot forward. You may not have the time yourself to be putting everything together in the right way. So they help you, guide you through that as a process. I think it is there that consultants are helpful. They will let you know, okay, so by when should you be prepared? By when should you reach out to your recommenders? I know people who actually were not able to complete their application because the recommenders did not respond on time. So someone who's structuring this process for you, okay, if you want to get your essay, how many times do you want to get your essay reviewed? You want feedback from, let's say, X, Y, and Z people. If you want feedback from 20 people, then the time to get your essay ready is not a week before the deadline,
Yeah.
right? So they help you structure the process. So to me, that part is valuable. Some of them also help you put your story together, but that could also be done without consultants,
Yeah.
right? So you could speak to alums and you could also work with them, see, okay, this is what I've done, this is what I think has motivated me, or this is what matters most to me, and then put that story together. So consultants just help structure that process. They are trained to do this, and because they are trained to do this, you are going to have to pay them more. There are people who are not trained to do this, who will help you on occasion. A consultant would be working with, say, 200 applicants.
Yeah.
An alum might be helping out 5 friends of them,
Yeah.
right? And you yourself this might be the first time you're applying, and for you to then backward match what is it that worked, what is it that not worked, is tough. Having said that, again, some of these admission consulting companies also give waivers. In India, I know that in case you're not from a well-to-do financial background, they'll give you that waiver and they'll help you apply. Beyond that, there are some softwares now that have come up which are also giving you the same guidance on structuring the process.
Wow.
So there's, I think, the one popular one that my friends used a lot is something called an applicant lab. There are people from...
It's free to use?
No, it is, you have to pay a certain fee, but it's much cheaper compared with consulting. I think consultant fee is around $9,000, maybe $10,000 when you're applying for 5 to 6 schools. So there's that. Applicant lab is a software, is a SaaS product, much cheaper, but again, there's no human interaction, right? It's there. Now there's, I think some people from NYU have developed another product, which I read about recently. So lots of things there are happening. And then of course, there's the route to work with alums. So yeah, can you apply without it? Yes, there are people I know who have gotten to HSW again without the help of a consultant. And they're doing well. For a friend of mine who's in private equity, working till 1 a.m., 2 a.m., and then asking him to do all of this, all himself, remember all of this, I think is very tough.
Yeah.
So for them, it just helps out.
All right. So it basically saves your time and structures the whole process for you,
Yeah.
and that's what you're essentially paying for, right?
Yeah.
All right. So I've hired someone now, and I've shortlisted 5 schools. What next? How do I craft my story? What kind of stories sell? And for different schools, I believe different kind of stories sell. How do you figure that out? And ये story बनती कैसे है?
Got it.
How much
So,
masala do you add to it? Be very
anyone
honest.
anyone who wants a candid answer to this question, or they want to know the recipe or the masala,
Yeah.
they should stop watching this podcast right now, because there is no masala,
Yeah.
or not at least one that I can give.
Yeah.
It is very abjectly absurd to think of the idea that I am striving to get into a certain school. It is a capital investment.
Yeah.
It's a $200,000 minimum commitment no matter which school you go to,
Yeah.
adjusted for financial aid, whatever said and done. At minimum, there is the opportunity cost of you leaving your job.
Yeah.
So please don't think about you solving for where you want to be. And I recently got this text message where an individual said, okay, this is my long-term goal. Do you think I should position it this way or position it that way?
Yeah.
And do you think I should market it this way or market it that way? I'm like, this is not, what do you really want to do?
Yeah.
Think about what is it that you want to do, and then see if the school can help you do that. Once you have that clarity, then you won't have to think about stories that sell.
Yeah.
Don't fit your life to an MBA. The MBA has to add value to your life.
Yeah.
That is the most important advice. So anyone asking for masala or recipe, I don't think there is any. You can always get templatized answers from AI. They're looking for the real you. They want to know who you are, what your goals are, and how they can help you achieve those. And please, please, please know that you are also making a huge decision. It's not small. Every dollar invested there should yield meaningful outcomes for you.
Yeah.
So a lot of people also, I know, have gone into these business schools with certain assumptions that were broken the day they entered college in terms of what kind of outcomes to expect. I know a friend of mine who saw a slide from their placement cell, the career management center. Placements work very differently in the US than they do in India.
Yeah.
And they were like, okay, this is my dream industry to go to after this college. And they saw the slide and they're like, oh wow, this college does not even get anyone into that industry. Just because you had that idea that I'm in the best school, that best school may not be best for you.
Correct.
And that is what you have to solve. So do that, Don't look for recipe, masala, whatever. There are ways to present your story better, and your guide, your coach, if there is one, your alums that you can speak to, all of them will help you bring out some of those things. They will tell you what you should what you should highlight, or what can be written better, what is not coming out. All of that is fine. I think the most value I got from the admissions process was actually talking to my family. When we were looking at ideas that I was trying to put forth in terms of who I am, who would know me better than my brother or my mother who've seen me grow up, right? So they were the most valuable resource in terms of saying, no, but this is the ideas that you should be thinking about. This is how you should storyboard.
Yeah.
So all of that helps. And then if the school also thinks that this is something I can enable for this individual, they will work with you on it. Otherwise, it is great that that did not happen for you. Don't over-optimize. Don't force-fit the line to certain dots. That's a recipe for disaster.
All right. I recently actually read that 30% of, I think, Wharton's class was unplaced.
Could be. I'm not familiar with that data.
Wharton or Harvard, like one
Sure.
of these two schools, they were unplaced, right? So, what one assumption do you think you also had that got shattered as soon as you entered Stanford?
I think placement related, the good thing, when I was going into the school, I knew what I wanted to get out of it. And I knew that what are the avenues or what are the channels that exist to help me get that. But to still see some of these things, which is the H-1B employees, right? For anyone who's immigrating from India, you need an H-1B. To get an H-1B, what are the industries that sponsor? And therefore, if the school does not have a lot of employment coming from those places, there is no H-1B. So even if the school has a 15% placement in consulting, but the number of internationals hired is 5 and 40 of you are walking in, then that is not for you.
Yeah.
If your goal is to be in the US, then you're looking for an H-1B. If you are looking for an H-1B and the school offers it to only 5 people out of the 40 that are coming through, right, that is the trend, then that is not for you. So knowing all of this is extremely important. And this goes back to my friend actually saying to me that this is the industry I want to go in, looking at that slide and then being like, oh shit, this does not happen.
What did they do what then later? I'm curious to know.
They changed their path now.
Okay.
And I think there is a lot of residual energy left with that, which is not positive. So you're always like, okay, this is what I paid for, but this is not what I'm getting.
Yeah.
So just be very careful, very thoughtful about what you want to get.
Yeah. And regarding the placement process also, right? So in India, we are very used to like companies coming to the college and then it's slightly बहुत प्यार से hand holding वाला way, right? But there you have to reach out to people on your own. How does that differ? And how does one go about it? Because I spoke to a lot of people who were joining Ivy Leagues and all of them had started preparing for placements months before the school started. So what is that process like?
I think that is a very proactive approach that you have to take in a business school in the US. There is no doubt. You don't have placement days. You don't have a cohort-based assessment. Right, like they will naturally have the same interview process. They're still going to ask you, for instance, in consulting, it's still going to be cases, it's still going to be guesstimates. But from what I heard from my peers who are recruiting for these organizations, is that you have to, in some of them, speak to at least 5 to 15 members of their team before you are being considered for an evaluation. Now, that is something that does not happen, right? The idea is that all those 5 to 15 conversations are a two-way assessment process. So you are also evaluating them, they are also evaluating you. It's a fit in terms of different functions, different geographies. Where should you be? What office should you be in? Is the team culture aligned with you? Like the broader culture may be similar, but even within organizations, offices have certain practices that align with you. And so the process is very different. There are, I think, one of the things that I remember from the Stanford presentation is that a certain percentage, which was meaningful, gets placed in the month or 2 months before the summer season starts. So in May or June, this is when a significant minority will get placed for the summer. In India, colleges pride themselves on the ability to place the batch in a certain time frame.
Yeah.
How can you do that? The way you do that is when you orchestrate it in a fashion where everyone has to constrain themselves to a certain timeline, to a certain set of opportunities, and again, they don't have the opportunity to rethink.
Yeah.
I may go in with a certain assumption, I go to college, I realize that this is not for me, right? Assumptions keep changing.
Yeah.
But then in India, I don't know if you have the opportunity to actually reorient yourselves through that placement process, which is not to say that you can't go off campus, but I think even there are certain restrictions and so on. So lots of policies and the processes are dramatically different. So yes, you have to be proactive. Yes, a lot of people actually recruit before even getting there, which helps them.
Yeah.
And I think for anyone who's thinking of recruiting there, in addition to plotting out what the realistic outcomes look like, also plot out what the realistic processes are like and prepare yourself with a go in with a goal in mind, because otherwise college flies by.
One important skill throughout this process, right, and I think in life in general, is you have to network like crazy, right? Even while you're drafting your essays, you need to talk to people who've studied there, alums, everyone. You have to continuously network and get their insights. Then once you actually get into a school, you again need to network, have those coffee chats with recruiters or whoever, right? How can one be good at it? How did you go about it? And how do these coffee chats actually operate?
Got it. So firstly, the idea of have to network, no, you don't have to. When you're applying for a B school, I know that there are certain schools of thought which say that you should speak to 15 alums, get their perspectives. You should do that if you want to learn how their journey went, how they made the decision, if you want to get feedback about specific classes, about specific experiences. And again, this goes to a holistic idea of what the MBA is going to look like and what can it do for me and what has it done for other people. In that process, speaking to alums is a very good, healthy approach, which is where you discover how these things work. But there is the poor approach as well, which is people reaching out to alums with the sole purpose that I want to get something out of this conversation so that I can mention it on my essay because this is the thing the school is going to. No, they really don't care. So do it with a positive approach, be intentional about it, of what you want to learn. So if you can go to, okay, let's say you're interviewing, you go to this person who's from that school and you ask them, how should I prepare for the interview? What are the questions that are asked and so on and so on. They are, by the way, guardians, ambassadors of that college. They're also very thoughtful about who they're advising, who they're letting in. So your questions about acing a test, again, are poorly structured. It's not about acing that test. It's about presenting yourself in the best original way that you are. So I think you don't have to network there. Now, coming to college placements and where you want to be, again, intentionality. You don't have to network. If you want to get into a certain job, then you would want to know. It's a very different perspective, right? Which is some people will come to you and say, I have to speak to 5 to 15 people. Some people will say,
I need to.
Yeah, I want to know. I want to know what is it that you do. And you won't believe this, but people have been fascinated by the simple idea when I have went up to some of them and asked them simple questions on, okay, but what does your job really look like? Because they thought that when I was meeting them, I would just ask them for the process. You know, what is the process? How should I prepare? And so, which is fine. But do you even understand what you're signing up to do? So that curiosity comes from a place of wanting to know what to do rather than trying to ace another exam.
So even if I want to know, right, how do I convince someone to answer my questions? How do I convince someone to meet me? Once I have, let's say, a college ka tag, right, it's slightly easier. But if I don't have that tag, how do I still convince someone of importance to speak to me?
Got it. I think you can, there's so many things that you can learn about how to get people's attention, get their time, so on. I don't want to put myself in a spot of saying that I'm the best judge of what approach to take, right? But I think the one thing that changes radically for people from India who are going to the US is high trust versus low trust society. In the US, the implied idea is that people will make the time to speak to you because they see you as a valuable person, right? If you're in a certain college, people of that college will definitely respond to you because that is the strength of the alumni community that they want to continue developing. So that culture of giving back is very strong. Even outside that, there is a very positive approach with which these coffee chats or these networking sessions take place, because they also see intentionality. A simple example, I want to know more about a certain deal in industrials that a large private equity firm has done. How should I go about it? The first thing is, if I go and message the MD that you did this deal, why did you do it? It's going to be the most stupid approach you could take in that process. What is it that you have done in terms of your work before going into that conversation? First, read everything that you can about that deal externally. See whatever you can. Now that you have all that information, you will have certain questions that are still unanswered. You take those questions to someone else who's on that deal. And then you keep refining that. So as you approach it from a lens of curiosity, if you have questions, you keep refining those questions. Eventually, you will get to a question which will only be answered by a certain person, and they will then find value because they'll say, okay, this person has done the work.
Yeah.
So I think the MD of a certain firm will also respond to you. But yes, it comes from the kind of society you're in. In India also that is possible, but it is difficult. Too many people, right, approaching this with a very different mindset. So I think there that curiosity is nurtured, cultivated, and you will see a very radical difference in terms of how they approach their conversations versus how we approach our conversations. So I think it comes from that as well. But do your work. There is no substitute for that, be it in India, be it in the US. It's just that once you've done the work, much easier to have those conversations in the US.
Now in terms of a profile, right? There are certain elements to it. One is your GMAT, one is your whatever you did in your college, then is post-college if you're applying later on. Does the brand matter? Does the role matter? What eventually matters in a profile, and what makes a profile stand out? And what do you think was that aha thing in your profile that got picked by so many colleges?
If I knew the answer, I would be such a rich person selling $10,000 sessions for that in India. But no, jokes aside, I don't know. And it is in very poor thought process that people will assume that they know why certain things worked out, right? At least as an individual, you cannot know because they are constructing the class. They know what they're looking for in terms of what is the type of class they want to build this year, in terms of what they see is useful / valuable, and where they want to position themselves as a school. Within that, you showcase who you are. If it's a fit between A and B, then you are matched. This is not like Amazon. There is not a product seller with a very transparent pricing that you can just go and buy that.
Yeah.
No, it's a very highly opaque marketplace, right? Which is you don't know exactly what they're looking for. They don't want to put that out because maybe that's what you will then start saying, right? So very opaque marketplace. You don't know what they're looking for. What should you be doing? How are relative components of your application important? The one thing someone told me is very interesting, that these schools are calibrating for distance traveled. So as a business school, you don't really care whether someone has necessarily worked at the largest private equity fund or a small time private equity fund. They also care where you started from and what got you there. Let's say I come from a less than privileged background, right? And because I come from that humble background, I did not have access to the best guides. So I did not go to the best college because I did not, but I had hustle, I had curiosity. I created those opportunities for myself and eventually got into a place where I was able to out-execute, outperform, outshine people in the same place of the same caliber who did not do as well. Why? Because I have a certain passion, I have a certain curiosity which stands out. So they are always looking to understand or calibrate for the distance traveled by a candidate. So there is no one formula. I know people say that, you know what, if you're at McKinsey, if you went to, let's say, a certain IIT, and then you did work in a certain private equity, you are more likely to get in and so on. Great, for sure. I don't know what those statistics are. Maybe there is that answer. But also, again, knowing all of this, will you hyper optimize your life?
Yeah.
To those parameters? Yeah. And let's say if after doing all of this, the school changes the way they think about it and you don't get that admission, is that life well lived? I don't think so. So to me, schools are calibrating for distance traveled. Don't look at markers, or at least even if you're looking at markers, don't optimize for markers, right? Live your life as you have been. Keep working hard, demonstrating your passion through your different work streams. And if there is a fit between what you want to achieve, what you have been doing so far, and the school, it will match.
Yeah, you make it sound so easy. All right. And what was your application and profile like? So we know you went to CBS. You were one of the brightest kids there. I can literally testify to that statement. But what after that? What was your journey like? If you're comfortable sharing.
So right out of college, I went to a Big Four organization. I spent some time working with them, understanding how transaction structuring is done. And after that, I went to two VC funds. Spent 3.5 years there working on different transactions, different programs. And I think, again, going back to this idea of, is that indicative of what people should be doing? Yeah. I think it's not, it won't answer that question. But for me, the thing that I enjoyed doing the most at these funds was looking at some of the real economy businesses, looking at atoms, not bits. So for me, one of the portfolio companies was working in the weddings management space. The other was working in the real estate sector. There was, then of course, there were the other businesses which were working on more sort of digital products. So they were there. But I enjoyed most working with some of those real economy businesses that I could relate with, understand very well. And for me, that was the most enjoyable time when work stops feeling like work. So I think those were the longest hours, but like the least I worked in that sense. So those were some of the things that I did. I ran a program to indoctrinate young talent into the Indian startup and VC ecosystem, which was a very rewarding experience when you get to see 60 people come up across different schools and learn the ropes of venture capital, meet with founders, the quality of questions that they ask. I think those were the rewarding experiences that I had. The rest of it, of course, was a fairly standard VC or investing job, I would say.
That's it. And that's like you didn't do any social impact. That's considered very essential to getting into an Ivy League. You didn't do any, zero to hero story type of thing.
Zero to hero story, I think only Shah Rukh Khan does that well. Love Jawan.
Yeah.
So there's that. But to me, the idea is, again, distance traveled, right? What does zero to hero really mean? What does social impact mean? I mean, look, if you, very simple example, right? I won't even go to what the admissions officer is thinking. We are sitting here right now. You are reading my application. 6 months before applying, I decide that, okay, I need to show some social impact. I start teaching at Teach for India.
Yeah.
Are you not going to see through that as a very obvious, genuine lie? That this is not something this person is passionate about. They're trying to pad up their application, right? So this idea of social impact and so on, I think putting that out there, one of the things that I really love about the MBA application process is that it gets so many people working on some of these social causes, even though they may not want to, but but it gets like there is surplus good that is being delivered to the society. So, I mean, please believe in that myth. Go work, go feed people, go build homes, go teach people. I love that. I would encourage more people to do that. But for me, that was not what I was at that time passionate about. What did I do in addition to my work? I was running a community of investors in India, which has, I think it is the largest community. It has 800 investors from pre-seed to post-IPO, right? I was running a newsletter for people to break into VC, giving them content recommendations and helping them transparently access jobs which were otherwise guarded, right? So those are the things that I felt passionately about. So I did that. But which is not to say I did not go out of my way, because I did not feel passionately about necessarily going out to help certain specific types of people. There are causes that you naturally gravitate towards, and you work on those. If you go out of your way to showcase that there are things that I'm doing to pad up the application, neither will you do a good job there, nor will it necessarily help you there, right? So the people who are receiving that may not be the best well off. The admissions committee will definitely be disappointed. So please don't do things that you're not really passionate about. Find causes that appeal to you. if you want to do that, again, you don't have to find causes to work in. There are enough people who are creating impact through the work they're doing in general, right? It doesn't have to be a specific impact in a specific setup that appeals to business schools. All has to add up. It is your journey. Live your life. Don't hyper optimize.
After this, the next step is the interview.
Yeah.
How was your interview? What kind of questions do they ask, and how can one prepare for it?
My interview was I think 2-3 different times, right? Which is
And how long was it?
Yeah. So schools have a different format in terms of how the interview is structured, right? Which is I can't reveal details about, other than what is in public, but like a Kellogg interview will likely be about an hour long, right? 30 minutes to an hour long. Similar for a Stanford interview, similar for an HPS booth. All of these interviews are structured that way. A Wharton interview is a very different setup. They have something which is called a team-based discussion. So you sit in groups of, I think, 5 or 6 kids. There's 35 minutes that you discuss on a certain idea or a topic that they give you. And then there is a 10-minute individual interview component. So that is the interview setup. Now, how do you prepare for it? Again, go back to the idea of, okay, what did I do? What is it that you've really done? Because clearly there was something that you have done where your passion and the school's goals in terms of what they're looking for in the next class match. Because they match, they've extended you an interview invite, which is to know more about the same things or to unlock or uncover different facets of your personality, which were not necessarily there. So to prepare for the interview, just be well versed with what is it that you have done. Rethink about every moment in your life really, and think about what is it that you did during those times. Why did you do those things? What were your motivations? What were the outcomes that you achieved? So when you do that, then you will have a very good view in terms of how to approach the interview. There are certain people who give you like sets of questions that will be asked by the interviewer or are typically asked. You can always peruse those. I think some of them will be asked, some of them will not be. But I think it serves as a good guiding stick because some people are very anxious before the interview process. So to me, it won't change your answers really. But I think if you know these questions or the type of questions that might be asked, you'll be at ease. So definitely go through those. My interview experience 3 different times. All 3 very different. My Wharton TBD was one of the most interesting experiences I've had because you're sitting with 4 or 5 bright people in that room and you're just fascinated by the things that they have done, the ideas that they're putting forth, right? So it is one of the most interesting formats and a very enriching conversation. But also I think much like anything else, it's very hard to predict. Which is, so how do you prepare for the interview? They actually tell you what is the approach. So some of the people in India do a lot of mocks, which is I think the approach they follow, which is get 5 other people who are interviewing or not interviewing, work with them and see how you behave in a group setting. So that is the approach. For me, I think no matter how you behave in a certain context, they assemble a very international pool, at least at my time because there was COVID. I don't know whether the process follows similarly today as well. But because that was the idea, I was working with students from all across the world, from Europe, from the US. And then we debated and discussed that idea. And then after that, they put you in a breakout room, or at least they did at my time. And then they invite you for that personal interview, which is like 1 or 2 questions because 10 minutes. So that is the interview experience. And you, by the way, the admissions officer or the people who are interviewing are very open to the idea of saying, look, this is your time. You say whatever it is that you want us to know, right? So it's not like, oh, this is an objectively nice answer or a bad answer. They want to know who you are. So just say to them whatever it is that you think the admissions committee needs to know about you. So not in the team-based discussion because that's a very different format, but in the 10 minutes that you have, use it. They'll ask you a question, use that to communicate whatever it is that you have not been able to communicate in your profile or double down on some of those aspects. The other interviews are a simple, straightforward interview of 30 minutes to an hour where they're trying to understand who are you, what have you done, why did you do those things, and what is the outcome of those things, what were you trying to achieve, how do you handle, say, things like stress, resistance, failure, how did you arrive or how did you cultivate this set of values that has made you who you are today. So those are some of the things that they're trying to assess. So that is what I think my Kellogg and Stanford interview experiences looked like.
So, in summary of the whole process, right, what are 3 red flags and 3 green flags that adcoms look at?
I don't have the answer, unfortunately, for anyone watching. I think the just be yourself. I don't think there are green flags, there are red flags. Admissions committees across the world are going far deeper than that. They're looking for texture. They're looking to understand more about the decisions that you've made, right? They see your resume. Almost all interviewers have already seen your resume. At HBS, they've actually seen your entire application. So then there's a 30-minute interview where they're actually actively trying to prospect or get out of you this information is of why did you do the things that you do? What do you think about certain things? So they'll also see what is it that this person does when they approach a new problem, right? So I wouldn't say there are green flags, there are red flags. I think my interview at Stanford went very poorly. I thought the same way about my interview at Kellogg as well, right? I know stories of a lot of people who felt the same way after their interview, that they did not put their best foot forward. And so you may come out of that interview room thinking, okay, wow, I did not do well. But again, texture and what is it that they're looking for in terms of adding to your profile.
When you say did not do well, what does that mean? When someone is being themselves, right? What does not do well mean then?
Okay, you're in a rapid fire situation, people are asking you questions, and in that moment, maybe you start on a line of thought that you don't necessarily agree with, but then you complete that, right? Maybe you realize that, okay, someone is asking you, what do you think is one time when you failed? The example that you gave might not be the best example. Maybe there are better examples of failure that you think are more representative of who you are in general versus the one that you gave, which was exceptional, right? So things like that always happen, which is you may not give the best answer for a certain thing, but maybe that is like they're looking for you in terms of an overall profile. They're trying to develop more depth on who you are as a person. So it does not have to be that every word that you say has to be picture perfect, right? They're trying to understand you. Maybe you don't think that was the best thing you could have said, or maybe you just in that moment your articulation went for a toss. All of those things happen. It's a nervous state of being that you're in when you're interviewing. So all of those things happen, but I think the school, the interviewers, all of them are wise enough. They've been doing it for a super long time. So they know what could a candidate have said in a certain position, even though they may be the best suited person for this place.
So we have some questions which fellow Instagrammers wanted to ask you. So I'll ask some of the interesting ones which I think might help a lot of people, right?
Sure.
First is, for a deferred MBA program, is starting essays in Feb considered too late? What timeline should I follow to stay on track?
Fun fact there, my Wharton Deferred MBA deadline was 1st April. I started writing my essays on the 13th of February. So 45-day timeline. Can it be done? Yes. Is it advisable? Absolutely no.
But then why did you do it?
Because I decided far too late in the process that this is something I am sure I want to be doing. Also, because it was COVID, I did get a 2-month deadline relaxation. So my deadline was then pushed out from 1st April to 27th May, which is not to say that I was not ready with it, but yes, that benefited me hugely.
Got it. Next question is, I'm ignoring this. What soft skills are helping you to be there and cracking the exams?
Helping me be there and cracking the exam. Okay.
Surviving in Stanford, basically.
Surviving in Stanford. I think being open to any conversation. And the term that I like to use for this is that you should embrace curiosity, not adjudication. So just be open to having any conversation with everyone. Let serendipity play out. You are probably in the best institution in the world for what your goals are. And therefore, any conversation will give you something or the other.
I'm very curious to know, was getting in difficult? What was more difficult actually? Getting in or now after getting in?
Getting in is, I think, an experience in itself. But after getting in, now think about it this way. 7,300 odd people applied. 400 of them got in. Now, these 400 individuals of all the people who wanted to pursue certain goals, etc., they are naturally much better suited. So it becomes tougher and tougher at the school. One example, I don't know if I'm supposed to share this or not, but on one of our exams, the class average for an exam where you know that people were not really studying, the class average was 91. And there were 20% of the people who had gotten 100 on that exam, right? So this is, and the term used for this is called the Stanford Dark, which is on the surface you'll appear extremely calm, but you're paddling very hard underwater. So I think surviving at Stanford is much harder than getting in. But also, now that you're there, you know that that will automatically happen. I think getting in has a downside. Surviving at Stanford does not have a downside.
All right. Next is, from whom did they get a letter of recommendations?
So I got my letters of recommendation from my previous employers. So both my bosses at Venture Highway wrote for me.
Professors? College professors?
So professors you could go to when you're applying for Deferred MBA. So when I did that, then I went to a college professor. But when you've been working for a very long time and your college professor's frame of reference is dated, it is advisable to go to your employers, your mentors, some of the people who have seen you recently.
How did you convince them to write for you?
You actually don't have to. People, I think, in general, want to support you, and good people will say good things about you.
Yeah. Or if they really hate you, they will say, "Sure, we'll write."
They will not write for you.
They will completely.
It's called a letter of recommendation. They will never write for you.
All right. Does Ivy League MBA make sense, ROI and learning wise, if I want to settle in India in the long term?
There are actually a lot of people who went to the US, came back, and have made it financially viable to have done the MBA program in the US. So I think definitely there's precedent to do that. Having said that, the cost of the MBA used to look very different. Today, it's also entirely different. I still see that there are certain fields, for instance, private equity VP role in New York pays the same as it does in Mumbai. So things like that, your cost of living goes down significantly, and then your income levels are the same. I would imagine that at a McKinsey senior partner level, which is when your compensation is more determined from a shared profit pool, the economics look the same. So there are some professions, there are some fields that will pay you similar to the US, even in India, but that's very highly contextual. If you want to do FMCG in India, post MBA roles might look like they might pay you 50, 70, 80K in India, but in the US they will pay you $150,000 to $200,000. So those look different. But for services that travel basically across borders, the compensation has normalized.
Got it. US MBA versus Indian MBA. Also, I would like to extend this question and ask, with the Trump administration coming in, right, and the whole US economy going for a toss, how are things like, and do you think it's favorable now, the conditions there for Indian students to be paying so much and going there and studying?
Got it. US MBA versus Indian MBA. I think in India, and this is what everyone who's evaluating also our schools says, that what you're doing actually is an MIM type of program more so than an MBA type of program, which has largely to do with the way that people are getting in. So you have a lot of people with less than 3 years of experience, and so you've not really learned the work really well, I would argue. You've not I would say that for most of them, they don't know what is it that we want to achieve. So I would not call it an MBA. There are some programs like the ISB PGP or like a Masters Union TBM. I think those are much more comparable to an MBA as a concept, but very different programs, very different experiences. And I would say if you want to change your geography, it makes absolute sense to do it from the US. If you want to change your job function, I have not seen that happen materially well necessarily in India. It does happen, but in the US, I think that change is easier relatively to orchestrate. And then the third is when you need to be in a profession which is not constrained by national borders. I think in those cases, it makes sense. The quality of the class, I think, is great, which is not to say, because I've not done an Indian MBA, I can't say that the Indian MBA does not offer that. But I am very happy with the experience that I'm having in the US. Now to your second question, which is on the Trump administration, the US economy. I think the US economy is at a place in time where, to me, it reflects um, an economy that is undergoing severe decline. It has started yet. So when an economy goes off peak, you have things that have happened like the petrodollar agreement is no longer there, right? A lot of nations are engaging in trade in their own currencies. So when your economy is rising, you are able to have a lot of other nations accept your power, and that is what also then further boosts your economy. When your economy is declining, then that becomes challenging, and so your power, I would say, your hegemony, the value of that starts to decline. So the US is declining, but it is going to take time. The MBA has not necessarily declined. So if you want to do an MBA, if you want to learn with that set of peers and take those learnings in different parts of the world, you should still do that. Settling in the US, I think there are a lot of things that you need to look at today, which might look different in terms of economic opportunity that is available, in terms of the sentiment that a lot of people are concerned about with regards to the way the H1 debate has shaped up and how Indians are being specifically treated slash targeted in that conversation. So a lot of those factors have to play in when you're thinking of settling in the US. But the MBA itself may still be viable if you want to come back to India, be in Europe, be elsewhere in the world.
So for someone who's looking for a placement after a US MBA, right? Would you recommend this to them, that go abroad, spend 2-3 crores, and then probably not even get placed?
If you want to move to the US, you can look at multiple opportunities. This is this is not necessarily the best one, right? You could be doing other programs which are much cheaper. I know that there are master's programs for engineers and even for non-engineers in finance, in management, that are much cheaper, much smaller timelines, right? So you could be doing that, assuming that your goal is to just move to the US. So I think dependent on your goals, there are definitely a lot of ways that you could orchestrate that transition.
Got it. What could be the top reasons for not pursuing the MBA, knowing what you know now?
I think this is a very interesting question. My understanding of what the classroom provides and what the experience is has definitely elevated, but my expectation from the program in terms of what it will help me achieve, etc., has not changed that much. So, top reasons to not pursue an MBA. Let's say you are not very clear about what you want to get out of it. People say that no, you should nonetheless go for it. You know, it's an experience. Maybe that is the process of discovery that will happen, and MBA flies by. I don't think that it provides you that kind of an opportunity to really explore and understand the 5 things that you want to be doing. So have a very clear hypothesis, and not one. You can have multiple hypotheses that you test out over the course of that MBA, and so then you will derive maximum value out of it. So if you don't have a hypothesis, don't do an MBA. If you don't have a specific financial outlay, I would recommend that there are other ways, even transitioning to the US, even getting in a different job that may be more suitable for you. So look at all of those constraints. But beyond that, I think experience wise, it is a great experience. Definitely go for one, assuming you know what you want to do. And then select the right college, not just based on brand, but based on what you think you want to achieve, and then whether the college can help you do that.
Okay. Is it better to stay in India now, given the environment in USA against Indians H1B visa?
I personally am long India. So for me, regardless of what the environment in the US is, highly advocate staying in India. Lots of opportunity here. And in fact, the economic opening up has created so many industries, formalized jobs, the manufacturing that is happening in the south of India, the ports that are opening up, the PLI that is being provided, opening up of different sectors. I think the Indian economy is definitely booming right now, and it will continue to do so because we are a consumption driven economy, and that mass market consumption is not going anywhere tomorrow or 10 years from now or 20 years from now. So in my views, being in India and compounding here is much better than being in the US necessarily for a lot of people, except if you have a very specific goal of wanting to be, say, the CEO of the existing big tech players. If that is something that you think you want to be doing, then for that there is no other opportunity. The HQ is not going to shift to India. Some of those opportunities are going to stay concentrated in those geographies, but otherwise, be in India. I'm 100% low.
Your financial aid and scholarship.
Okay, so that's a number that I'm unfortunately not allowed to share. All I'll say is that for Indians, every college is generous enough to provide you meaningful financial aid to help you pursue the MBA. And one of the best pieces of advice that I got from an alum of certain school said, lever up, which is if you're going for an MBA, it may take time. It may be tough to pay off the loan, but it is definitely worth it. So you be concerned about the finances? Absolutely. But also don't let that be a deterrent unless it necessarily is.
Got it. Should I start preparing from +2 or is it too late?
It is too late. I think you should start preparing from when you're just born in kindergarten. That is the best time to be preparing for the MBA. Take GMAT about 2 years into that. No, but that is the most patently absurd question I've heard. It is never too late. I took the GMAT too early, I think. You can take the GMAT in your final year, be okay about it, do your MBA later. There are classmates of mine who are, I think, 42 right now. We play cricket together. And so they're also there. So it's never too late.
How did you balance academics, networking, personal growth, and partying during the program? How are you doing it basically?
I wouldn't say that I've necessarily balanced that. I think there is this thing, the three the three elements, right, which is the studying, the sleeping, and the socializing, the three S's of an MBA. People say you pick two. So I think that is the idea. You pick two of them and you work with that. Some people will say, no, you can hyper optimize, do this. No, you can't really. You have to, if you want to be out there partying, socializing every time, then necessarily your academics or your sleep will take a hit. Fortunately enough, most of the US MBA programs have something called a grade non-disclosure, which is not available to us in India. What that means is that a McKinsey will not know my grade when they're recruiting. So that is a huge thing that is different in the US. So then I can afford to actually miss classes. I can afford to not submit projects. I just need to pass. So as long as you can orchestrate that,
But
you need
even
not be
then,
worried.
you just mentioned like 91 was the average.
That is a call that people are taking, but also you could choose to not do that. There were also in that same class, very same class, there were people who had a 45 100. Very different life.
And out of the three S's, which two did you pick?
I think so far I've been focused on studying and sleeping. Maybe socializing is up for next quarter.
All right. Next is, okay, again, I think we covered this. How do you think MBA education that you are receiving help make the world a better place? This is a good question.
I think that's a very deep question. Honestly, my understanding of a lot of things has changed. Whether I'm able to translate that in terms of changing the world for a better is something that I hope to do. And this is not something I'm being humble about, but genuinely, you can think you will have an impact with the best of intentions. Things may not be on your side. And it just happens. So, fingers crossed, hopefully, what I'm learning, I will be able to translate and make the world a better place to live in.
We briefly spoke about DU societies versus the clubs there now.
Yeah.
What is the difference that you feel? Is there a difference to begin with?
I think the difference that I see from undergrad to postgrad, I think it's more of that versus saying that it's a DU versus the US thing. So, postgrad clubs are really dependent on your interest. In undergrad, I see a lot of people competing, just like I want to be club president, I want to do this because I want to get a certain highlight or whatever, chasing that ambition relentlessly. I think I see a lot less of that in the MBA because people are very thoughtful about how they spend their time. So if I'm joining a club, there has to be some express purpose to it. I'm genuinely interested in it. And so the club experience of being a member of the club, I'm a member of like 20 different clubs. And I'm attending their conversations, whichever ones I find interesting, right? I'm receiving all the updates. You could do that. You could also choose to not be a member of any club, right?
That would be sad.
It could be. I mean, we have a golf club. So yes, definitely.
All right, so now we have a rapid fire segment. So you have to be quick.
Sure.
And witty, of course. Obviously, that's the goal. How many hours of prep did you put in for the GMAT?
I would say about 60 hours across 9 weeks. So about 600, 540, 600.
One GMAT resource you'd recommend to everyone?
The official guide.
750 GMAT, old GMAT, or a killer essay, which matters more?
For the hyper optimizers, both. For honesty, I think it's your purpose, it's your story.
Got it. What's the hardest essay question you answered during your applications?
What matters most to you and why?
The most overused essay theme Indian students need to avoid.
I have been a consultant in India. I want to come to the business school to be a social consultant and thereafter start an impact venture.
God.
Unless that is your true purpose, please don't. Even the consultants know this.
One thing every MBA must include, essay must include.
Authenticity of your story. There is no secret sauce, there is no masala.
Best internship for aspirants, startup or a big brand?
For people going into business school, right? Best internship, again, has to align with your purpose. Really doesn't matter whether it's a big brand or not.
Leadership or impact, which impresses schools more?
It'll be hard to say. Firstly, definition of leadership. People have to understand that leadership does not mean being president. Leadership means being able to influence a large group of people to getting them to act towards a common vision. That you can do without being in a leadership position. So you can lead without authority. And I think that's an important element. So leadership and impact, it's never or.
One extracurricular activity that you think boosted your application the most?
I don't think anything boosted my application. I did take up dancing right before the MBA. So I'm just slightly worried if they saw the video or not.
Does a failed startup still count as a strong profile point?
I would move away from the idea of calling it a strong point or not, but I would say that if your startup has failed, please don't be disheartened by that impacting your application negatively. There are multiple things that go or don't go your way. I also tried to start up in undergrad. It did not go my way, and it was a part of my application. I don't know whether they looked at it positively or not. In my head, it shows extraordinary dedication towards a specific cause.
It also just shows someone who tried.
Yeah. So the lessons that you gain from it are far more important than the fact that it failed.
One question every aspirant should ask an MBA alum.
What do you think is the school's archetype?
Stanford MBA in one word.
That's incredibly tough. Okay. Illuminating.
I want to ask Stanford's archetype.
Stanford's archetype. I think my personal view is that the people at Stanford, there is this motto, change lives, change organizations, change the world. So I think it is people who have gone above and beyond to do something to institute that change very actively and very intentionally. So I think the people that I've met reflect that motto very well.
The most surprising thing you learned at Stanford so far?
It is helpful to know how to cook.
Are people cocky there?
I don't think so. I don't think I've met a single person who's cocky at Stanford. No.
There is a stereotype that Howard people are very cocky. Do you think that's true?
Might be true for them. I don't know. The people that I know are nicer.
He's playing it very safe. Okay. MBA costs in one word.
Insane.
Scholarship or loan, which is more realistic for Indian students?
Scholarship will definitely happen, and most of you will end up needing a loan.
What's the average starting salary after an Ivy League MBA? That is if you get placed.
If you get placed. Good caveat there. No, I think the number that has been mentioned is around 180K, which includes the signing bonus, and then there is a variable component. But 180K is a good place to look at.
Now, this is the most important question. Is the ROI of an Ivy League MBA overrated or worth it, according to you?
I love this idea that I learned in accounting way back, right? When you're calculating ROI, if you cannot think where the cost of acquisition has to be attributed, you add it to something called goodwill, which is a secret term for intangibles that you don't really know how to value. So the sense that I've gotten from everyone is, look, the intangible value of an MBA is always going to be high. The experiences are amazing, and you will never do this again in your life. So that is there. But having said that, tangibly as well, I think it makes sense. But again, know what you want to do. See that the program can actually enable it, and be honest to yourself, to those around you who are paying for that if you're not yourself. on why you're doing it, what you want to get out of it, and how you're going to achieve that. Otherwise, nothing in life honestly has an ROI, least of all an expensive $200,000 MBA.
Last one piece of advice for aspirants who are watching you.
The one thing that I think I've learned from people in the US, there are 400 million of them, there's 1.4 billion of us, right? But their propensity to take risks, even at that, and they have a much higher GDP per capita, there is that social safety net, all of that is available. But even in India, maybe the 1 million or the 5 million today who think their way, who consume the same content, wear the same brands, use the same digital devices, and subscribe to some of the same schools of thought, please start thinking more creatively. There is no reason for you to worry about the fallback that you have. Please don't keep accumulating insurances throughout your life, going to the school that you may not necessarily have wanted to, doing the job that you may not necessarily want to, just because it helps insulate you from downside. You are in a privileged enough position to take risks. India needs you to take risks, and the world will reward you for having done that, because of all people, you are the ones who have the right access, the right networks to be able to accomplish something big. Not taking risk is the biggest risk that you're taking right now.
Yeah, that is super inspiring. Thank you so much. If you have any more questions related to admissions, please drop them in the comments below. We'll try our best to answer them. And if you found this episode helpful, make sure you subscribe to the Witty podcast so I can keep bringing valuable guests like him, and share this with someone who is probably thinking of preparing or already preparing for their MBA. They might thank you later.